Peking Street Sounds. My name is Krenz, F. Henry Krenz, though I'm known in Canada as Kim Krenz. As a child and boy in the 20s and 30s, I grew up in Peking, China. Looking back on the Peking of those days, one recalls particularly the street vendors with their characteristic calls. They were so much a part of the sights and sounds and smells of Peking. There are many people in Canada and the United States to whom these Peking street sounds, the vendors' cries, and the sounds they make on a variety of instruments bring back memories of a childhood spent, as mine was, in China. As I have remembered a number of the cries and have recently been given access to a collection of the instruments, I have made the following tape of Peking street sounds primarily for these people, but also for others who may find them of interest. The cries, some of them musical, some not so musical, are in Peking dialect, which we all spoke as children, and which is very close to the official Chinese, or Guoyu, except that an sound is added to many terminal vowels. Thus, tongzi, or a copper penny, becomes tongzi, and mudanhua, a rose, becomes mudanhua. 我姓柯，柯很瑞。我是在北京这1920到1930几年长大。到那回在北京有这个路上卖吃的，什么东西卖的，这人呢都是有他们的自己唱的哨，自己打的音。我早上上学，天天见过这个老太太卖烧饼的，她唱的是这么样：烧饼卖有这贵，麻花儿，不知喝这个，买烧饼来。This was an old lady whom I used to meet every day on my way to school. She was selling shoubing, a delicious sesame seed flavored bun with mahua and yuzhugui, a deep-fried delicacy eaten with shoubing for breakfast. There was also the match seller, or rather the man who would exchange sulfur matches for other acceptable items. His call was 万阳西人儿，万阳西儿，万阳西人儿。We children used to buy a lovely sticky white toffee liberally coated with powdered sugar and the ever-present Peking dust, which we called, for some reason, Tungzhou candy, but which was called by the Chinese Guangdong Tang, or Canton candy. The vendor would set up his stand outside our schoolyard gate and cry, 卖广东糖，卖广东糖儿。There was also another delicious treat, the tanghulu. You will note that our infatuation with Chinese delicacies is complete. This was a series of glazed fruits, grapes, jujubes, crab apples, or a sort of potato-like tuber, threaded onto a sliver of bamboo, so that the result was a sugar-glazed wand, sometimes 2 feet long, from which the candied fruit could be worked off with the teeth and consumed at leisure. The vendor cried, 卖糖葫芦! Not all street vendors cried their wares. The itinerant barber carried all the tools of his trade, including a stool for the client, suspended from either end of a shoulder yoke, and advertised his presence with a device like an enormous tuning fork. 取头发 was to cut hair, and 刮脸 or to get a shave. But many Chinese in those days shaved their heads, or 刮头. The itinerant knife and scissors sharpener also carried his whetstones and other implements on a sort of sawhorse over his shoulder, and sounded a device consisting of 4 or 5 plain blades suspended on leather thongs, which clanged as he swung it to and fro with his free hand. The well-dressed blind man, in his long gown and small black silk hat, carried a drum, which hung from his wrist in a way which allowed that hand to beat the drum with a short stick, while his other hand grasped his guiding staff. He could be relied upon to tell stories and jokes for the amusement of paying clients. The traveling vendor of old iron, glass, and bottles beat rhythmically on an inverted dried gourd with a stick and cried out, 卖玻璃卖，卖铁的卖，洋瓶子卖。卖玻璃卖，卖铁的卖，洋瓶子卖。